Okay, so we were just talking about how to manage the speed and the energy of the bus to keep a high minimum speed so you're never slowing down too much, yeah? And I showed you on the line graph how a learner driver drives in comparison to an experienced driver. It's important to remember when you're driving, there are only two ways you can maneuver the vehicle, either left or right through the steering, and increase your speed or brake through the pedals, yes, steering and pedals. It's not like flying a helicopter where you can adjust 5 different parameters at the same time, up, down, left, right, forward, backward, and pivot left or right. And control the engine speed. It's not like that. It's only 2 dimensions where you have to influence the vehicle. But the key is how you blend those 2 things. And that's why, a successful Formula 1 driver might get paid 15, 20 million pounds a year. It's their ability to blend the 2 controls, the pedals and the steering, yeah? And there's an art to how you blend it. The important thing to remember is generally when you're driving, position is always more important than speed, yeah? We had a look at the speed, now we're going to look at the position, yeah? When you learn to drive a racing car, for example, there's something called the racing line, yeah? And what that means, it's pretty much what car drivers do instinctively. What that means is if you have a corner, yeah, we try and make the corner as straight as possible. So the outside of the corner is called a vertex, yeah? The inside of the corner is called the apex, and the other outside is called the vertex. And what racing drivers are taught to do is to basically come up to the corner and make it as straight as possible, straight lining it, yeah? And it's what people do in their cars and motorbikes instinctively. You always try and make the corner as straight as possible. It keeps the average speed as high as possible, and it means you have to do the minimum amount of steering, yeah? That is precisely the wrong way to drive a bus. It doesn't work, yeah? This is what we call the racing line. When you're driving a bus or a coach or a lorry, our driving line is very different, yeah? And what we have to do there is we have to square the corners off. It's the exact opposite to what racing drivers do. So for example, yeah, I'll just do a left-hand turn. Yeah? This is typical of the types of corners we encounter. There are 3 things going on here, yeah, which the people who design the roads make it very difficult for us. They don't realise in their own stupidity when they design these roads how difficult they make it for large vehicles. The first thing that's happening is the road is actually narrowing on the bend. Yeah, it happens a lot. Generally speaking, where you have a tight corner, the road narrows. Rather than staying the same width or getting wider, right, they make it difficult for us for the road narrowing. The second thing is we have what we call quite a late apex. If you look at the sharp bit in the corner, yeah, it's towards the end. This is why when you're driving, you'll always tend to hit the exit curb. Because when you're coming up to the corner, you position the vehicle for the entry away from the curb. But as you have to turn the steering more and more to get around the apex, the back wheels come closer and closer to the curb, and that's where you'll tend to hit the curb. The apex is at the end of the corner, so you'll hit the exit of the corner, yeah? This is something you have to understand and remember from now, because when I take you to the more difficult corners, maybe tomorrow, maybe from next week, if you're not careful,
straight enough, but then go straight enough.
Well, correct. You have to double steer sometimes. Yeah, you have to create space for the back wheels. But if you're not thinking about the exit curb, and I want you to remember this from now onwards, you will hit the corner on the exit curb. Yeah, we hit a couple of curbs yesterday.
Yeah.
Wasn't that bad, but that was actually for a different reason. Those corners weren't very sharp. They weren't very tight. You hit the curbs because you were just a bit too fast. Yeah. So the road's narrowing. Plus we've got a tight late apex. Yeah. And as well as that, sometimes you'll also find that your zone of vision, as we call it, yeah, the ability to see through the corner is blocked by trees or fences or something else. Yeah, so you haven't got good visibility. Yeah, in Scandinavia, they realise that the safest way to construct roads is to take away all the unnecessary road signs, all the trees, anything that blocks a driver's field of vision, zone of vision. Yeah, so they have good sight lines through the corners. Unfortunately, in this country, again, through their stupidity, they don't understand that, and they try and make the roads as cluttered and as confusing as possible for learner drivers. Yeah. So let's just have a look. So we've got this road here, which is tightening. Yeah. Now, as I said to you, the normal racing line would be to hold the vehicle out, to come in and clip the curb as close as possible. Yeah. That won't work in a bus because you'll hit the curb. So what we have to do is we have to use something called offset. Yeah. We have to create the space for the back wheels. So as you come up to the corner, I would look at this and think, right, that's a bit of a tight corner, it's going to be a bit tricky, yeah? I would keep the bus a little bit to the right. Keep it closer to the white line. So I've started creating space for the back wheels from here. Now as I go into the corner, I've got to turn, yeah? And what that's going to do is it's going to start to bring the back wheels closer to the curb. You see here, they were here. Now they're getting closer to the curb. Now if we carry on turning, there is a chance that the back wheels may actually strike the curb, yeah? So what you have to do is, as you go around, the first thing to do is understand that brake control is important. You've got to get the speed down to give yourself time to think and to look, yeah? So you're controlling the brakes. As you turn in, if you find that the back wheels are getting too close to the curb, you have the ability to stop the bus now because you've got the brakes under control. If there's nothing coming towards you, you can let the bus go over the white line a little bit and take it a little bit wider on the exit to clear the curb, yeah? And then turn again. So you turn in, you straighten a little bit, you may have to go over the white line a little bit, and then you turn again. It's what we call double steer. Steer, straighten, steer. However, if there's something coming towards you, and it might be another bus, you never know, it might be a large vehicle, you can't go over that white line, you have to stay in your lane. Now, because you've got the brakes under control, you stop. Yeah. So you understand how brake control is important to allow you to stop the bus before you hit that curb. If, once you've got the brakes under control, it's okay, you may need to check your right mirror and signal, but you can go over the white line a little bit to avoid the curb on the exit, yeah? And that's the important thing. It's important to understand the difference between what we call the racing line, which is what car drivers tend to do, and the driving line. If, for example, I'll show you a very tight corner, a 90-degree corner, yeah? Something like this, and the pen's running out. Yeah. Now on this one, clearly the bus is going to have difficulty getting around, yeah? So what we do on this one is we square the corner off, yeah? In your mind, you want to go here, yeah? And your natural instinct is to steer to there. But you know, if you do that, the bus is going to end up on the curb, yeah? So what we have to understand is we have to aim here, yeah? Our aiming point is directly in front of us. We may have to take the bus all the way forward so the back wheels get to the corner, which means the front of the bus is going to be somewhere there. Now, at this point, the corner stops being the problem. The problem now is the cars or the traffic coming from here, because you can't do this if there's oncoming traffic. So as you approach the corner, you have to look and make sure it's clear. And if it's clear, you aim over here and then you steer, yeah? And you take the bus wide and then you bring it back in, yeah? That's a very late steer, yeah? And it's what we call squaring the corner off. So you're not thinking of the corner like that, you're thinking of going forward, and it's almost like there's a magic turntable that's going to turn the bus here, yeah? The way you have to imagine it is you drive the bus onto the turntable turns the bus, and then you drive out. That's how you have to visualize it, yeah? You have to aim here, you have to drive the bus forward, slow it right down, get all the steering on, lots of mirrors, turn the bus in that space there, and then go straight, yeah?
Sometimes there is island, you know, and then
Yes.
that day this guy
Yeah.
was.
Well, if there's an island there, yes, you've got to factor that into the equation
The
as
overhang
well.
just to go sweep the island.
Sometimes,
overhang.
well, sometimes you have to get very close to the island. I've done a video on the one at Stag Lane where you have this island at Stag Lane, and you really have to hug the island. You have to create as much space as you can on the left. You've got to hug the island to get around the corner, yeah?
And sometimes this goes, overhang goes, sweep the
Sometimes,
island.
yeah, if there's nobody standing there,
And it's
that
low,
tight,
very low.
yeah, the overhang can sweep the island, but don't hit the island, yeah?
Yeah.
So, I told you that you've got to imagine this like this giant turntable that turns the bus around, yeah? And in some ways, you've got to have a good imagination when you're driving, because you've got to be able to visualize these things, yeah? And just one more thing before we go. Another example is I told you about the imaginary wave, yeah? When you're in a meeting situation, and there may be something parked on your side of the road, yeah? And you've got cars coming towards you, yeah? Now, when a boat goes through the water, yeah, it creates what we call a bow wave, yeah?
Wave, yeah.
It's where it parts the water. And if there is any small dinghies or small boats near it, it pushes those boats out the way. In the same way, you don't realize it, but when you're driving, the bus is creating a bow wave. Yeah. Now, as long as there's enough space for you and the oncoming traffic, and you're going slowly, what you can do is you can position your bus to encourage the cars to move over. It's like you're creating an imaginary wave as you go through. But you can't go too fast. You can't scare people and you can't intimidate people. But what you can do is take it through slowly and hold your line, and it encourages them to move over. Yeah? That's something you have to be able to visualize when you're driving.